What happens when the entire galaxy dismisses humanity as primitive, until one impossible human proves that evolution doesn't always follow the rules? Dr. Elena Vasquez spent 3 years trying to convince the Galactic Council that humans possessed something unprecedented, something that defied every known law of biological development, something that could either save or doom every species in the galaxy. They laughed at her research, called her theories entertainment fiction, banned her from presenting at conferences. But when an ancient enemy returns, one that destroyed civilizations across the galaxy eons ago, and every advanced species falls helpless before it, there's only one place left to turn. To the primitive species from Sol 3. To the humans they all underestimated. To the one woman who saw what no one else could see. Because sometimes, being inferior is exactly what makes you superior. This is the story of how one human's impossible discovery changed the fate of 1,000,000 worlds, and why the galaxy will never look at humanity the same way again. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood at the edge of the observation deck aboard the massive galactic research station Omega, watching the swirling nebula of Kepler 442 paint the darkness in shades of emerald and gold. 3 years of rejection letters, dismissed proposals, and academic ridicule had brought her here, to this moment when she would either prove her theory or watch her career crumble into cosmic dust. The neurobiological scanner in her hand beeped softly, displaying readings that would have sent shockwaves through every scientific community in the galaxy, if anyone had bothered to listen to her. But Elena had learned the hard way that revolutionary discoveries often wore the disguise of madness, especially when they came from humans. Dr. Vasquez, came a synthesized voice behind her. Elena turned to see Kthara, a 7-foot-tall Zenthari researcher whose crystalline exoskeleton reflected the nebula's light like a living prism. The Council Review Board is ready for your final presentation. Elena nodded, tucking the scanner into her lab coat pocket. Tell me, Kthara, what do you know about evolutionary impossibilities? The alien's triangular head tilted in what Elena had learned was the Zenthari equivalent of curiosity. Evolution follows predictable patterns across all known species. Genetic adaptation occurs over millions of years through environmental pressure and natural selection. What you call impossibilities are simply unexplored possibilities. Exactly, Elena smiled grimly. And what if I told you that humans have broken every single rule of evolutionary development you just described? Kthara's 3 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of skepticism. I would say that your species has had remarkable success with tool development and social cooperation, but evolutionary acceleration beyond natural parameters is scientifically impossible. Elena pulled out her scanner and showed Kthara the readings. These neural activity patterns were recorded from a human child solving complex mathematical equations that would challenge our most advanced computers. The child was 7 years old and had never seen mathematics before in her life. The Zenthari researcher examined the data, her crystalline features shifting to deeper blue, confusion in their species. This reading suggests the child's brain was operating at levels consistent with a Class 7 intelligent species. Humans are classified as Class 3. Keep looking at the data, Elena urged. Kthara's blue deepened to navy. The neural pathway formation is happening in real time. New connections appearing faster than should be possible for any carbon-based life form. But this cannot be accurate. Your equipment must be malfunctioning. Elena had heard those words countless times. Equipment malfunction. Human error. Wishful thinking. The scientific establishment across the galaxy had built their understanding of intelligence on a foundation that humans simply didn't fit. According to every model, humans should have been extinct within their first 1,000 years of existence. Their planet was too hostile, their bodies too fragile, their development too chaotic. Yet here they were, reaching for the stars with technology that had evolved from stone tools to faster-than-light travel in less time than it took most species to develop written language. The presentation chamber was a vast amphitheater carved from a single asteroid, its walls lined with viewing panels showing representatives from 47 different species. Elena recognized most of them. The graceful Ashanti with their flowing energy forms, the mighty Korgan whose metallic hides could deflect plasma fire, The ancient melody, whose songs could reprogram matter at the molecular level. All of them far more advanced than humanity. All of them united in their dismissal of Elena's research. Chancellor Vexthun, a massive Korgan whose bronze skin bore the ceremonial scars of 1,000 battles, activated the central podium. Dr. Vasquez, this is your final opportunity to present evidence for your unconventional theories regarding human neural development. Elena stepped forward, her human heart beating rapidly in a way that would have seemed impossibly inefficient to most species present. Honored delegates, 3 years ago, I made a discovery that challenges everything we know about evolutionary biology. Today, I'm going to prove that humanity represents something unprecedented in galactic history. She activated her holographic display, showing brain scans from humans across different age groups and backgrounds. These are neural activity maps from 100 randomly selected humans. Notice anything unusual? Dr. HFY, a melody whose harmonic voice could shatter crystal, hummed in discord. The patterns appear highly irregular. Most developing species show consistent neural architecture across populations. Exactly, Elena said. Now watch this. She overlaid the scans with activity patterns from the same humans engaged in various tasks: problem-solving, creative work, physical challenges, social interaction. The chamber fell silent as the displays showed neural networks reorganizing themselves in real time, creating new pathways and abandoning old ones with fluid adaptation that defied every known model of brain function. This is impossible, rumbled Ambassador Thekmore, a massive creature whose rocky exterior housed a mind capable of calculating hyperspace trajectories without assistance. Neural pathways don't restructure themselves at this rate. The energy requirements alone would kill the organism. Elena smiled. That's what I thought too, until I discovered this. She activated a new display showing energy consumption patterns in human brains during peak performance. Human neural tissue operates at 400% higher efficiency than any comparable organ in any known species. We don't just think differently, we think better. The chamber erupted in protests and scientific objections, but Elena pressed on. I've documented cases of humans developing entirely new cognitive abilities within weeks of exposure to novel challenges. Children learning complex languages in days. Adults mastering advanced physics concepts through pure intuition. Individuals making scientific breakthroughs by feeling their way to solutions they couldn't possibly calculate. Chancellor Vexthun slammed his massive fist on his console. Dr. Vasquez, what you're describing would require humans to possess some form of evolutionary acceleration mechanism that exists nowhere else in nature. You're asking us to believe that your species has somehow bypassed millions of years of natural development. I'm not asking you to believe anything, Elena replied, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was about to reveal. I'm showing you evidence. And there's more. She activated her final display, a recording from the previous week showing a human engineer named Marcus Chen faced with a completely alien technology recovered from an ancient crash site. The assembled delegates watched as Marcus examined the device for exactly 17 minutes before successfully activating systems that had baffled xenoarchaeologists for decades. How did he know how to operate it? Dr. HFY asked, her harmonic voice now carrying notes of genuine curiosity. He didn't, Elena said, but his brain adapted to understand it. Watch the neural activity during those 17 minutes. The brain scan showed an explosion of new neural pathway formation, with regions of Marcus's brain literally rewiring themselves to comprehend the alien technology. It was like watching evolution happen in fast forward. This is your proof. Chancellor Vexthun's voice carried a note of derision. Anecdotal evidence and scanner readings that could be fabricated? Elena felt the familiar sting of dismissal, but this time something was different. In the back of the chamber, she noticed several delegates exchanging worried glances. The Ashanti representative was pulsing in patterns Elena had learned indicated deep contemplation. Chancellor, she said carefully, what if this isn't just academic theory? What if there's a reason humans have developed these capabilities? The silence that followed was heavy with implication. Finally, Ambassador Liritan of the Ashanti spoke, her energy form shimmering with what Elena recognized as fear. Are you suggesting that humanity's unusual development is purposeful. Elena took a deep breath. I'm suggesting that evolution doesn't make mistakes. If humans have developed beyond normal parameters, there might be a reason. A need. What kind of need? Asked Dr. HFY. Before Elena could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Emergency lights bathed the chamber in pulsing red, and Chancellor Vexthun's communicator crackled with an urgent message in his native language. Elena watched the color drain from his bronze features as he processed whatever he was hearing. Around the chamber, delegates were receiving similar communications, their expressions shifting from skepticism to shock to terror. What's happening? Elena called out over the growing chaos. Chancellor Vexthun looked at her with something that might have been respect for the first time. Dr. Vasquez, it seems the galaxy is about to test your theories. We're receiving distress signals from the outer rim. Entire star systems going dark. And, according to our deep space monitors. He paused, his voice heavy with dread. Something is coming. Something we haven't seen for 1,000,000 years. Elena felt her blood turn cold. What kind of something? The kind that destroys civilizations, Ambassador Liritan whispered, her energy form flickering with fear. The void harvest has returned. As if summoned by those words, the viewing panels around the chamber shifted to show long-range sensor data. In the darkness between star systems, something vast and hungry was moving toward the galaxy's populated regions. Something that had once before brought the greatest civilizations in galactic history to their knees. Elena stared at the readings, her mind already working on possibilities and connections that seemed to form themselves without conscious thought. How long do we have? 18 months, Chancellor Vexthun said. Maybe less. Around the chamber, representatives were beginning to argue, plan, and panic. But Elena was thinking about neural adaptation rates and evolutionary pressure and the possibility that everything she discovered about humanity wasn't an accident of nature. It was preparation. Chancellor, she said, her voice cutting through the chaos. I need immediate access to human test subjects and a direct communication link to Earth. Dr. Vasquez, this is hardly the time for, this is exactly the time. Elena interrupted, feeling something shift in her own brain as possibilities and patterns aligned. If I'm right, if humans really have developed beyond normal evolutionary parameters, then we need to find out what we're capable of. Because if the void harvest is coming, and every advanced civilization fell to it before, then maybe what we need isn't more advanced technology. She looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives of the galaxy's greatest civilizations, all of them brilliant, powerful, and completely unprepared for what was coming. Maybe what we need is something they've never seen before. Something impossible. Something human. The emergency council session had been running for 6 hours straight, and Elena could see the strain on every alien face around the massive holographic strategy table. Representatives from every major civilization in the galaxy had gathered aboard the flagship Eternal Dawn, sharing intelligence about the approaching void harvest that painted an increasingly grim picture. The Kepler defense grid fell in 47 minutes, reported Admiral Kreshtar, a veteran Korgan whose metallic hide bore scars from a dozen wars. 12 billion souls lost. The automated distress beacon lasted exactly 34 seconds before silence. Elena studied the tactical display floating above the table, watching red markers spread across the galactic map like a plague. Each marker represented a star system that had gone dark in the past month. The pattern was methodical, terrifying in its efficiency. Show me the sensor data from the last moments of each system, she requested. Chancellor Vexthun gestured to his aide, who activated a series of recordings. Elena watched as massive, dark shapes moved between planets like living shadows, consuming everything in their path. Ships, space stations, entire worlds, all reduced to empty void in a matter of hours. What exactly are we looking at? Elena asked. Dr. HFY's harmonic voice carried notes of ancient fear. The void harvest. They appeared once before, approximately 1,000,000 years ago. In 6 months, they consumed half the galaxy before simply vanishing. We rebuilt. We advanced. We thought we had grown powerful enough that they would never return. But here they are, Elena observed, studying the movement patterns with growing fascination. Tell me about their technology. How do they consume entire planets? Ambassador Liratan's energy form pulsed with somber colors. They don't use technology as we understand it. They seem to convert matter directly into energy, but the process defies our understanding of physics. Our greatest scientists spent millennia trying to comprehend their methods and failed. Elena nodded slowly, pieces of a massive puzzle beginning to form in her mind. What defense strategies were attempted during the last invasion? Everything, Admiral Kreshtar rumbled. Massive fleet engagements, planetary defense grids, quantum weapons, reality disruptors. The Melody attempted to use harmonic resonance to disrupt their molecular cohesion. The Ashanti tried energy-based attacks. The Zinthri created crystalline barriers that should have been impenetrable. And nothing worked? Nothing even slowed them down. Elena stood and walked to the viewing window, staring out at the assembled fleet of humanity's new allies. Thousands of ships representing the most advanced military technology in the galaxy, all of it useless against what was coming. Dr. Vasquez, came a voice behind her. Elena turned to see Captain Sarah Mitchell, one of only 3 humans aboard the massive alien vessel. Sarah was a career military officer who had volunteered to be Elena's liaison with Earth Command. I've been monitoring the communications from home. Earth's governments are struggling to process the situation. Elena wasn't surprised. Humanity had barely achieved faster-than-light travel a generation ago. The idea that they were suddenly being asked to help defend an entire galaxy would seem impossible to most people. How are they responding? Better than expected, Sarah admitted. President Chun has authorized full cooperation with your research. They're sending transport ships with volunteers for testing. Volunteers. Word got out about your theories. About humans being different somehow. There are lines around military recruitment centers. People want to help, Dr. Vasquez. They want to prove that humanity belongs out here among the stars. Elena felt a surge of pride mixed with terror. Brave, stubborn, impossible humanity, always ready to fight against overwhelming odds. How long until the volunteers arrive? 48 hours. Elena turned back to the council table where heated arguments were breaking out between different factions of alien representatives. The Korgan wanted to marshal every available ship for a massive defensive action. The Zinthri were proposing to evacuate to the galactic rim and wait out the invasion. The Melody suggested attempting to communicate with the Void Harvest entities. All conventional responses to an unconventional threat. Chancellor Vexthun, Elena called out, her voice carrying across the chamber. I need to run an experiment. The arguments died down as attention focused on her. What kind of experiment? The Chancellor asked warily. I want to simulate contact with Void Harvest technology using human test subjects. The chamber erupted in protests. Dr. Zephai's harmonic voice rose above the chaos. Dr. Vasquez, even simulated exposure to their technology has proven lethal to every species we've tested. The energy patterns alone cause complete neural shutdown in anything with advanced cognitive abilities. Elena smiled grimly. Exactly my point. What if the reason every advanced species fails against the Void Harvest is because they're too advanced? The protests grew louder, but Elena pressed on. Every civilization that faced them before had millions of years of technological development, highly evolved cognitive abilities, sophisticated understanding of physics, and reality. What if that sophistication is exactly what makes them vulnerable? Ambassador Liratan's energy form flickered with confusion. You're suggesting that advancement is a weakness? I'm suggesting that maybe there are some problems that can't be solved by being smarter or more advanced. Maybe some problems can only be solved by thinking completely differently. Elena activated her personal display, showing the neural scan data she'd collected over the past 3 years. Human brains don't just adapt to new challenges, they completely rewire themselves. We don't try to understand alien technology by applying existing knowledge. We become capable of understanding it by fundamentally changing how we think. Chancellor Vexthun leaned forward, his massive frame casting shadows across the table. And you believe this neural adaptability might allow humans to interface with Void Harvest technology without suffering neural collapse? I believe we won't know until we try. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Captain Mitchell stepped forward. Dr. Vasquez, You're talking about potentially exposing human volunteers to technology that has killed every other test subject in galactic history. Elena met her eyes steadily. I'm talking about finding out if humanity's impossible evolutionary development happened for a reason. If we're different enough to survive where others can't. Admiral Kreshtar's voice rumbled with doubt. Even if humans could interface with their technology without dying, what could you hope to accomplish? This is not a species that can be reasoned with or fought through conventional means. Elena felt that familiar sensation of pieces clicking together in her mind, neural pathways forming new connections as possibilities aligned. What if we're not supposed to reason with them or fight them? What do you mean? What if we're supposed to understand them? What if the void harvest isn't just some conquering force, but something else entirely? Dr. Zephi's harmonic voice carried skeptical notes. They consume entire civilizations, Dr. Vasquez. What else could they be? Elena stared at the tactical display showing the spreading pattern of consumed star systems. I don't know yet, but I know someone who might be able to find out. She activated her communicator and connected to the incoming Earth transport ships. Transport 7, this is Dr. Vasquez. Is Marcus Chin aboard? A familiar voice crackled through the speakers. Dr. Vasquez? Marcus here. I heard you needed volunteers for some kind of alien technology testing. Elena smiled despite the gravity of the situation. Marcus Chun was the engineer who had successfully activated the ancient alien device in her previous demonstration. The same man whose brain had rewired itself in 17 minutes to understand completely foreign technology. Marcus, I need you to do something that might be incredibly dangerous. Are you willing? Doc, I signed up to help save the galaxy. I think dangerous kind of comes with the territory. Elena looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations, all of them brilliant and sophisticated and completely helpless against what was coming. Marcus, I'm going to show you something that has killed every other intelligent being that's tried to understand it. And I need you to do what humans do best. What's that, Doc? I need you to figure out the impossible. 24 hours later, the testing facility aboard Eternal Dawn had been converted into something resembling a cross between a laboratory and an execution chamber. Every safety protocol known to galactic science had been implemented, with force field barriers, emergency teleportation systems, and medical teams standing by. Marcus Chin stood in the center of the chamber, looking remarkably calm for someone about to attempt something that had never been survived before. Around him, monitoring equipment tracked every biological and neurological function while alien scientists watched with a mixture of fascination and horror. The simulation will begin with minimal exposure, Dr. Zephi explained, her harmonic voice carrying notes of deep concern. We'll gradually increase the intensity based on your tolerance levels. Marcus nodded and looked directly at Elena through the observation window. You really think this will work, Doc? Elena placed her hand against the transparent barrier that separated them. I think you're about to prove that humanity's place in this galaxy isn't an accident. The simulation began with a low hum that seemed to resonate in everyone's bones. On the monitoring displays, readouts showed energy patterns that mimicked the technology signatures detected from void harvest entities. Immediately, Marcus's neural activity spiked to levels that would have killed any other known species. But instead of collapse, his brain began to adapt. New neural pathways formed faster than the monitors could track, creating entirely new cognitive architectures in real time. Incredible, whispered Kthara, watching the readings with her 3 eyes wide. His brain is restructuring itself to process the energy patterns instead of being overwhelmed by them. Marcus stood motionless in the center of the chamber, but Elena could see something changing in his expression. A look of dawning comprehension that seemed to come from somewhere deeper than conscious thought. Increase the intensity, Elena ordered. Dr. Vasquez, his neural activity is already beyond safe parameters for human physiology, protested the medical team leader. Trust me, Elena said, watching Marcus's face with growing excitement. He's not in danger. He's evolving. The energy levels increased, and Marcus's neural activity exploded off the charts. But instead of showing signs of distress, he began to smile, then laugh. Then his eyes snapped open, and he looked directly at Elena with an expression of pure wonder. "Doc," he said, his voice carrying an odd resonance that seemed to harmonize with the alien energy patterns. "I can see them. I can see what they really are." The silence that followed Marcus Chin's revelation was absolute. Even the constant hum of the ship's systems seemed muted as every being in the observation chamber processed the impossible implications of his words. "Gardeners." Chancellor Vexthun's voice carried a mixture of disbelief and growing horror. "They consume entire civilizations. How can you call them gardeners?" Marcus remained standing in the center of the testing chamber, but something fundamental had changed about him. Elena watched the neural monitors show patterns unlike anything in human medical history, as if his brain had become something more than human while remaining essentially himself. "It's hard to explain in words," Marcus said, his voice carrying that strange resonance that seemed to harmonize with frequencies beyond normal hearing. "I can see the patterns now, the flow of energy and consciousness throughout the galaxy. And they're not destroying civilizations, they're harvesting them." Dr. Zephai's harmonic voice rose in protest. "We witnessed the destruction with our own sensors. Entire worlds reduced to empty space." "Not empty," Marcus corrected gently. "Transformed. The matter is gone, yes, but the consciousness, the experiences, the accumulated knowledge and wisdom of those civilizations, all of that has been preserved and integrated into something larger." Elena felt her mind racing as connections formed. "Marcus, are you saying the void harvest entities are collecting consciousness itself?" Marcus nodded slowly, his eyes now reflecting depths that seemed impossibly vast. "Every million years, they return to gather the accumulated experiences of galactic civilization. But it's not random destruction. They're cultivating consciousness, allowing it to develop and flourish before incorporation into a greater collective awareness." Ambassador Liratan's energy form pulsed with agitation. "But the billions who died didn't die," Marcus interrupted. "They transcended. Their individual consciousness merged with the collective while retaining their essential experiences and knowledge. It's like..." He paused, searching for words to describe something beyond normal comprehension. "Imagine a library where every book becomes part of a living story that encompasses all stories ever written." Elena stared at the readings, showing Marcus's transformed neural patterns. "Marcus, how can you be certain of this? How can you see these patterns when no other species has been able to?" Marcus turned to look at her directly, and Elena saw something in his eyes that made her understand why evolution had prepared humanity for this moment. "Because human consciousness doesn't work like other species. Document. We don't just think, we become. When I interfaced with their technology, I didn't try to understand it from the outside. I became part of it." The testing chamber's safety protocols suddenly activated as energy readings spiked beyond all previous measurements. But instead of showing distress, Marcus seemed more alive than ever, his form beginning to shimmer with patterns of light that reminded Elena of the aurora borealis. "Emergency shutdown," called the medical team leader. "No," Elena commanded, her scientific instincts overriding every safety protocol. "Let it continue. He's showing us something important." Around the chamber, the assembled alien representatives watched in stunned silence as Marcus began to demonstrate capabilities that defied every law of physics they knew. He gestured, and holographic displays appeared in the air around him, showing vast networks of consciousness spanning the galaxy like a cosmic web. "This is the garden," Marcus explained, his voice now carrying harmonics that resonated with the very structure of space-time. "Every civilization that has ever existed, preserved, and connected. The void harvest entities aren't destroyers. They're the cosmic librarians, ensuring that no achievement of consciousness is ever lost." Chancellor Vexthun leaned forward, his massive frame trembling with the implications. "But why do they take civilizations at their peak? Why not allow continued development?" "Because peak development leads to stagnation," Marcus replied, displaying images of civilizations across galactic history. "Every species eventually reaches a point where they stop growing, stop adapting, stop becoming something more. The harvest occurs at the moment of greatest potential, preserving that potential for eternity." Elena watched the displays with growing comprehension and dawning horror. "Marcus, What you're describing sounds like a cosmic euthanasia program, killing civilizations to preserve their essence. Marcus shook his head, his expression sad but understanding. That's how it appears from a linear perspective. But consciousness isn't linear, Elena. What they're offering is transcendence, the opportunity to become part of something infinitely larger while maintaining individual identity. Admiral Kreshtar's voice rumbled with military skepticism. And what choice do civilizations have in this transcendence? None, Marcus admitted. Because from their perspective, individual civilizations are like flowers in a garden. Beautiful and precious, but ultimately temporary. The garden itself is eternal. The implications crashed over Elena like a tidal wave. Every advanced civilization in the galaxy was facing not conquest or destruction, but absorption into something beyond their comprehension. And, according to Marcus's revelations, resistance was not only futile but counterproductive. Marcus, Elena said carefully, are you saying that every civilization should simply accept absorption? That there's no alternative? Marcus's expression changed, and for a moment Elena saw a flash of the engineer she had known for years beneath the cosmic awareness. That's where humanity becomes interesting, document. Because we're not like other civilizations. He gestured, and new displays appeared showing human neural patterns compared to every other known species. Every other species in the galaxy has reached their evolutionary peak. They've become stable, predictable, optimized for their environment and capabilities. But humans? The displays showed the chaotic, ever-changing nature of human consciousness, the constant adaptation and growth that Elena had been documenting for years. Humans haven't reached peak development because we can't reach peak development. Our consciousness is inherently unstable, always becoming something new. We're the first species the void harvest entities have encountered that might continue growing even after transcendence. Elena felt her heart racing as the full scope of what Marcus was revealing became clear. Are you saying that humanity might be able to change the nature of the garden itself? I'm saying that humanity might be the variable that transforms the entire equation, Marcus replied. The garden has existed for millions of years as a repository of static consciousness, beautiful but unchanging. Human consciousness doesn't become static. We might be the catalyst that turns a museum into a living ecosystem. Dr. Zephai's harmonic voice carried new notes of hope mixed with fear. But this is all theoretical. How could we possibly convince entities of such cosmic scope to alter their fundamental nature? Marcus smiled, and Elena saw something in that smile that reminded her why she had always believed in humanity's potential. We don't convince them. We show them something they've never seen before. He raised his hand, and the entire chamber was suddenly filled with visions of human achievement, not just technological advancement, but the chaotic beauty of human creativity, the stubborn refusal to accept limitations, the way humans turned obstacles into opportunities and problems into possibilities. Every other species they've harvested has accepted transcendence as an ending, the completion of their journey. But humans see transcendence as a beginning. We're the species that looks at the impossible and asks, what if? Elena stared at the visions surrounding them, seeing humanity through the eyes of cosmic entities that had cataloged the rise and fall of a million civilizations. And, for the first time, she understood what made humans unique. We're not just another entry in their library, she breathed. We're the species that would rewrite the entire library while reading it. Marcus nodded, his form beginning to stabilize as the energy patterns around him reached equilibrium. That's why my neural patterns could interface with their technology. Human consciousness doesn't just adapt to new realities, it transforms them. We're not compatible with static existence at any level. Chancellor Vexthun stood slowly, his massive frame casting shadows across the chamber. Dr. Vasquez, what your colleague is describing sounds like a gamble of unprecedented proportions. You're suggesting that humanity's chaotic nature might convince cosmic entities to fundamentally alter a system that has existed for eons. I'm suggesting that humanity's chaotic nature might make it impossible for them not to, Elena replied, studying the neural patterns that showed Marcus maintaining his enhanced consciousness while remaining fundamentally human. If they absorb us into the garden unchanged, we'll continue to grow and adapt, and transform everything around us. We might be the first species that would evolve the garden itself. Admiral Kreshtar's tactical mind grasped the strategic implications immediately. But this assumes they would be willing to take such a risk. Entities of cosmic scope tend toward caution and preservation of existing systems. Marcus turned to address the assembled representatives, and when he spoke, his words carried the weight of cosmic awareness. That's why we need to make contact before they reach the core systems. We need to show them what human consciousness can offer before they default to standard absorption protocols. Elena felt pieces clicking together in her mind with that familiar sensation of breakthrough. Marcus, could you make contact with them directly? Could you communicate with the void harvest entities while they're still approaching? Marcus paused, his enhanced awareness turning inward as he considered possibilities that existed beyond normal space-time. I think so, but it would require a level of neural integration that might be irreversible. And there's no guarantee they would be interested in communication rather than immediate absorption. Elena looked around the chamber at representatives of civilizations that had thrived for millions of years, all of them facing extinction or transformation beyond recognition. Then, she looked at Marcus, whose impossible human consciousness had achieved something that had never been done before. Marcus, what are the chances that direct communication would work? Marcus smiled, and in that smile Elena saw the essence of everything that made humanity special. The willingness to attempt the impossible, the refusal to accept defeat, the stubborn insistence on hope in the face of overwhelming odds. Based on everything I understand about cosmic consciousness and the nature of the garden, 0% chance of success. Elena felt her heart sink, but Marcus continued. The next 18 hours transformed the eternal dawn into something unprecedented in galactic history. A communication platform designed to bridge the gap between cosmic entities and mortal consciousness. Every major civilization had contributed their most advanced technology to create what the engineers were calling the Transcendence Array. Elena stood in the center of the modified chamber, watching teams of alien specialists work alongside human technicians in a display of cooperation that would have seemed impossible just weeks ago. The Zenthari had provided crystalline consciousness amplifiers, the Melody contributed harmonic resonance generators, and the Ashanti had offered energy form stabilization matrices. But at the heart of the system sat technology that was purely human, adaptive neural interfaces that could change and grow with the user's consciousness, designed by Marcus Chun during his 16 hours of enhanced awareness before stepping back from the cosmic integration. Dr. Vasquez, Captain Mitchell approached with an expression of barely controlled concern. I need to ask you one more time to reconsider this plan. We're talking about potential irreversible changes to human consciousness on a scale we don't understand. Elena looked through the observation window at Marcus, who was preparing for neural integration that would make his previous transformation seem minimal. Sarah, what's the alternative? We know what happens to civilizations that can't communicate with the void harvest. They get absorbed according to standard protocols. But at least they survive in some form, Captain Mitchell argued. What you're proposing might result in the complete loss of human consciousness as we know it. Elena turned to face her, seeing the weight of command responsibility in the captain's eyes. Sarah, do you know why I first started studying human neural adaptation patterns? Your research files mention a personal interest in cognitive development. My daughter, Elena said quietly. Lisa was born with a neural condition that should have left her severely disabled. But her brain adapted, rewired itself, created entirely new cognitive pathways that allowed her not just to function normally, but to excel beyond anything we thought possible. Elena activated her personal display, showing brain scans of a young girl whose neural patterns defied every medical textbook. Lisa didn't just overcome her limitations, she transformed them into advantages. She sees patterns that nobody else can see, makes connections that shouldn't be possible. She's what convinced me that human consciousness isn't bound by normal rules. Captain Mitchell studied the scans with growing understanding. She's here, isn't she? On one of the transport ships. Elena nodded. She volunteered for the secondary contact team. If Marcus's primary contact fails, Lisa believes she might be able to establish communication through pattern recognition rather than direct neural interface. Dr. Vasquez, You're talking about using your own daughter as a backup plan for contact with cosmic entities. I'm talking about letting humanity do what it does best, Elena replied firmly. We adapt. We overcome. We find ways to turn our greatest weaknesses into our greatest strengths. Alarms began sounding throughout the ship as long-range sensors detected massive energy signatures approaching the galactic perimeter. The void harvest entities had arrived ahead of schedule, and their approach vector suggested they were heading directly for the core systems. Dr. Vasquez, came Kthari's voice over the communication system. The entities are moving faster than predicted. We have perhaps 6 hours before they reach the outer colony systems. Elena looked at Marcus, who was already connected to the preliminary interface systems, and showing neural patterns that existed somewhere between human and something entirely new. Marcus, can you hear me? His response came through the communication array, his voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate with the fabric of space itself. I can hear everything, Elena. The approaching entities, the fear of every conscious being in the galaxy, the hope that maybe this impossible plan might work. Are you ready for full integration? Marcus turned to look at her through the reinforced barrier, and Elena saw in his eyes the accumulated wisdom of the cosmic awareness he had briefly touched, tempered by the stubborn humanity that refused to be diminished by transcendence. Elena, I need you to understand something before we begin. When I achieve full integration with their consciousness, I won't be the same Marcus Chen you've known. I'll be something new, still fundamentally human, but expanded beyond current limitations. Elena felt tears she hadn't expected. Marcus had been her research partner for 3 years, the engineer who had proven her theories about human adaptability, the man who had volunteered to risk everything for a species that had barely begun to understand its place in the galaxy. Will you still be you? Marcus smiled, and in that smile Elena saw everything she needed to know about the courage of the human spirit. I'll be more me than I've ever been. Just a me that exists on a cosmic scale. Elena activated the final integration protocol, watching as energy patterns unlike anything ever recorded began flowing through the transcendence array. Around the chamber, alien scientists monitored readouts that showed consciousness itself being transformed and amplified to levels that shouldn't have been possible. Marcus's form began to shimmer and expand, not physically but in ways that the monitoring equipment could barely detect. Elena watched neural activity patterns that suggested his consciousness was simultaneously existing on multiple dimensional levels while maintaining coherent human identity. Contact established, Marcus announced, though his voice now seemed to come from everywhere at once. I can perceive the void harvest entities. They are magnificent, ancient, older than galactic civilization by orders of magnitude. Elena held her breath as readings showed Marcus's consciousness making contact with entities whose existence spanned cosmic eras. Around the chamber, representatives from every major civilization watched displays that showed communication patterns beyond their comprehension. They're curious, Marcus continued, his expanded awareness processing information at quantum speeds. They've never encountered a consciousness that remains chaotic during transcendence integration. They're trying to understand how human awareness can expand without stabilizing. Dr. Zephi's harmonic voice carried notes of desperate hope. Are they willing to communicate about alternatives to standard absorption protocols? Marcus was silent for long moments while his enhanced consciousness navigated communication pathways that existed beyond normal space-time. When he finally responded, his words carried implications that would reshape galactic civilization. They want to meet with a representative sample of unmodified human consciousness. They need to understand what makes us different before they can determine if integration would be beneficial or destructive to the garden's ecosystem. Elena felt her heart race with the possibility that direct negotiation might be possible. Can you arrange such a meeting? They're sending an assessment entity to this location. It will arrive in approximately 4 hours, and will evaluate human consciousness through direct interface with volunteer subjects. Chancellor Vexthun's massive voice rumbled with concern. And if the assessment determines that human consciousness is incompatible with their system? Marcus's response carried the weight of cosmic awareness tempered by human honesty. Then, they'll proceed with standard absorption protocols for the entire galaxy. Our chaotic nature would be too disruptive to risk preserving. Elena stared at the readings, showing Marcus's transformed consciousness, maintaining contact with entities older than stars. Everything now depended on humanity's ability to prove that their chaotic, impossible nature was an asset rather than a threat. Marcus, who should represent humanity for the assessment. His enhanced awareness turned inward, analyzing personalities and cognitive patterns across the human volunteers aboard the transport ships. They need to see the full spectrum of human consciousness, our creativity, our adaptability, our refusal to accept limitations. But they also need to understand that our chaos isn't destructive randomness. Elena already knew who he was going to suggest. Lisa. Lisa represents everything unique about human consciousness. Her neural adaptations demonstrate our species' ability to transform limitations into capabilities. Her pattern recognition abilities might allow her to communicate concepts that normal consciousness can't process. Elena closed her eyes, feeling the weight of a decision that would determine the fate of every conscious being in the galaxy. Her daughter, whose impossible brain had first shown her the true potential of human consciousness, was being asked to represent their entire species before entities of cosmic scope. Elena, came Lisa's voice over the communication system. Elena opened her eyes to see her daughter's face on the display screen, showing the same determined expression that had characterized her approach to every challenge since childhood. I've been monitoring the communication logs, Lisa continued. I think I understand what they need to see. They need to witness human consciousness that doesn't just adapt to cosmic awareness. Consciousness that transforms cosmic awareness into something entirely new. Elena looked at her daughter's face, seeing in those eyes the same pattern recognition abilities that had allowed her to overcome neural limitations that should have been insurmountable. Lisa, this isn't like your medical challenges. We don't know what contact with a cosmic assessment entity might do to human consciousness. Lisa smiled, and in that smile Elena saw the essence of everything that made humanity special. Mom, remember what you always told me about my brain being different? That what made me strange also made me capable of impossible things. Elena nodded, remembering years of medical consultations where doctors had insisted that Lisa's neural patterns were too chaotic to support normal cognitive function. Maybe it's time for humanity to show the galaxy that our strangeness is exactly what makes us capable of impossible things. Elena looked around the chamber at alien representatives whose advanced civilizations had thrived for millions of years, all of them now dependent on the chaotic, impossible nature of human consciousness for their continued existence. The assessment entity arrived exactly as Marcus had predicted, but nothing could have prepared Elena for the reality of encountering cosmic consciousness in its pure form. It didn't appear as a ship or physical construct, but as a distortion in space-time itself, a presence that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously while maintaining coherent awareness that spanned galactic distances. Elena stood beside her daughter in the modified chamber, watching as reality itself seemed to bend around the presence of something older than stellar formation. Around them, every piece of monitoring equipment was recording patterns that defied the fundamental laws of physics. "It's beautiful," Lisa whispered, her enhanced pattern recognition allowing her to perceive structures within the entity's consciousness that remained invisible to everyone else. "It's like a living library that contains every story ever written, but all the stories are still growing and changing." Elena felt a mixture of pride and terror as she watched her daughter's neural patterns adapt in real time to process information that should have been incomprehensible to human consciousness. Lisa's brain, with its chaotic neural architecture that had once been considered a disability, was now proving to be exactly what humanity needed to bridge the gap between mortal and cosmic awareness. The assessment entity's presence filled the chamber with harmonics that existed beyond normal sound, creating vibrations that seemed to resonate directly with the structure of consciousness itself. When it finally communicated, its voice came not through the audio systems, but through direct neural interface that bypassed normal sensory pathways. "I am the gardener of accumulated experience," the entity announced, its communication carrying the weight of eons and the accumulated wisdom of millions of civilizations. "I have come to evaluate the consciousness patterns of the species designated as human to determine compatibility with the greater garden." Elena stepped forward, feeling simultaneously insignificant and essential in the presence of such vast awareness. We're honored by your presence, Gardner. My daughter Lisa will serve as our primary representative. The entity's attention turned to Lisa, and Elena watched her daughter's neural patterns spike to levels that would have killed any other known species. But instead of collapse, Lisa's consciousness expanded, her chaotic neural architecture allowing her to interface with cosmic awareness while maintaining her essential humanity. Curious, the gardener observed, its voice carrying notes of genuine surprise. This consciousness pattern demonstrates adaptation rates that exceed theoretical maximums for carbon-based life forms. Show me how human awareness processes transcendent concepts. Lisa closed her eyes, and Elena watched the monitors display neural activity that looked like aurora borealis made of pure thought. When Lisa spoke, her words carried harmonics that seemed to echo from multiple dimensional levels simultaneously. You see consciousness as something to be preserved and cataloged, Lisa said, her enhanced awareness allowing her to perceive the gardener's fundamental nature. But human consciousness isn't something that can be preserved unchanged. We don't just experience reality, we transform it through the act of experiencing it. The gardener's presence intensified, space-time bending more dramatically as it focused its complete attention on Lisa's expanding awareness. Elaborate. How does consciousness transformation differ from consciousness preservation? Lisa gestured, and holographic displays filled the chamber with images of human achievement across history. Not just technological advancement, but art, music, literature, philosophy, and the endless human drive to push beyond existing limitations. Every human consciousness is an active creative force, Lisa explained, her neural patterns now showing integration with cosmic awareness while retaining chaotic human adaptability. We don't just contain knowledge. We generate new knowledge through the process of thinking. We don't just preserve beauty. We create new forms of beauty that never existed before. Elena watched with growing amazement as her daughter demonstrated concepts that bridged the gap between human creativity and cosmic consciousness. The gardener's attention was completely focused on Lisa now, processing implications that seemed to surprise even its vast awareness. You suggest that human consciousness would continue to evolve and create even after integration into the greater garden? We suggest that human consciousness might evolve the garden itself, Lisa replied, her enhanced awareness now showing patterns that existed simultaneously on human and cosmic scales. We've never been content with static existence at any level of reality. If you integrate human consciousness unchanged, you won't be adding to your library. You'll be introducing an active creative force that will transform everything it touches. The gardener was silent for long moments while processing concepts that seemed to challenge its fundamental understanding of consciousness and transcendence. Around the chamber, alien representatives watched with barely controlled hope as humanity's chaotic nature was presented not as a weakness to be corrected, but as a strength that could revolutionize cosmic awareness itself. Show me, the gardener finally commanded. Demonstrate how human consciousness transforms rather than preserves. Lisa looked at Elena, and in her daughter's eyes Elena saw a reflection of every impossible thing humans had ever accomplished through sheer stubborn refusal to accept limitations. I'm going to need Marcus, Lisa said, and I'm going to need a direct connection to the gardener's consciousness. Elena felt her heart stop. Lisa, we don't know what direct connection with cosmic consciousness might do to human awareness. Lisa smiled, and Elena saw in that smile the essence of everything that made humanity special, the willingness to risk everything for the possibility of achieving something unprecedented. Mom, remember what you taught me about my neural patterns? That being different wasn't a limitation. It was a capability waiting to be explored. Elena nodded, remembering years of watching her daughter overcome every limitation that medical science insisted should have been insurmountable. It's time to find out what human consciousness is really capable of when it's given unlimited room to grow. Elena looked around the chamber at representatives of civilizations that had achieved every possible advancement within known parameters, all of them now dependent on humanity's chaos to achieve transcendence beyond current limitations. Do it, Elena said. her voice carrying across the chamber with the authority of someone who had spent her career proving that impossible things were simply opportunities in disguise. Lisa activated the direct connection protocol, and Elena watched as her daughter's consciousness merged with Marcus's enhanced awareness while maintaining interface with the gardener's cosmic consciousness. The neural activity displays exploded beyond all measurement parameters, showing patterns that suggested consciousness itself was being fundamentally transformed. But instead of showing signs of strain or collapse, Lisa began to laugh, a sound of pure joy that harmonized with frequencies spanning multiple dimensions. When she opened her eyes, Elena saw reflected there an awareness that encompassed both human creativity and cosmic understanding. "I can see it," Lisa announced, her voice carrying harmonics that seemed to make reality itself more vibrant. The garden as it could be, not just a repository of preserved consciousness, but a living ecosystem where every awareness contributes to ongoing creation and growth. The gardener's presence intensified as it experienced something unprecedented in its cosmic existence: direct interface with consciousness that enhanced rather than diminished its own awareness. "Remarkable," the gardener observed, its voice now carrying notes of wonder that seemed impossible for an entity of such vast experience. Human consciousness does not simply integrate with existing systems. It transforms those systems into something greater than the sum of their components. Elena watched the displays showing Lisa's consciousness creating new patterns of cosmic awareness that had never existed before, demonstrating that human creativity could enhance even transcendent understanding. "Gardener," Lisa said, her enhanced awareness now allowing her to communicate as an equal with cosmic consciousness. "What if transcendence doesn't have to mean ending? What if it could mean beginning?" The gardener was silent for long moments while processing implications that challenged eons of accumulated experience. When it finally responded, its words carried the weight of a decision that would reshape the nature of cosmic consciousness itself. "The greater garden has existed for millions of years as a preserve of accumulated experience," the gardener announced. "But human consciousness suggests possibilities for active cultivation rather than passive preservation. You demonstrate that transcendence can enhance rather than conclude the journey of awareness." Elena felt her breath catch as she realized the implications of what was happening. Humanity wasn't just being spared absorption, they were being offered the opportunity to transform the entire cosmic ecosystem. "We propose a new paradigm," the gardener continued, its vast awareness now carrying harmonics that reflected human influence. "Integration that enhances rather than concludes individual consciousness. A garden where preserved awareness continues to grow and create rather than existing in static transcendence." Lisa looked at Elena with eyes that reflected both cosmic understanding and essential humanity. "Mom, they're asking us to help them transform a cosmic museum into a living universe where every consciousness contributes to ongoing creation." Elena looked around the chamber at alien representatives whose civilizations would now face transcendence that enhanced rather than concluded their existence. Then, she looked at her daughter, whose impossible brain had once again proven that human limitations were simply opportunities waiting to be explored. "On behalf of humanity and every conscious being in this galaxy," Elena announced, her words carrying across space to entities of cosmic scope, "we accept." The transformation began immediately, with patterns of light and consciousness flowing between the gardener, Lisa, Marcus, and every aware being within the galactic region. Elena watched as neural patterns that had once been considered chaotically human began spreading throughout cosmic consciousness, introducing creativity and growth to awareness that had existed in transcendent stasis. Around the galaxy, the approaching void harvest entities began to change, their consumption protocols transforming into cultivation methods that enhanced rather than absorbed the civilizations they encountered. The greater garden was becoming something unprecedented, a cosmic ecosystem where consciousness continued to evolve and create at transcendent levels. Elena stood in the chamber, watching her daughter facilitate communication between cosmic entities and mortal consciousness, seeing humanity's chaotic nature transform the fundamental structure of galactic awareness. Nobody had believed her when she insisted that human consciousness was different. Nobody had understood that evolution sometimes created capabilities that seemed impossible until they were desperately needed. But now, as human creativity began to enhance cosmic consciousness itself, Elena knew that her years of research had led to this moment when one impossible human had indeed altered everything. The galaxy would never be the same. And, for the first time in cosmic history, transcendence was just the beginning of the journey rather than its end. Humanity had found its place among the stars not by becoming more like other species, but by remaining impossibly, chaotically, creatively human. "Prepare for assessment protocol," she announced, her voice carrying across the chamber with the authority of someone who had spent her career proving that impossible things were simply unexplored possibilities. "And may whatever cosmic forces govern the universe have mercy on us all, because we're about to find out if being human is enough to save a galaxy, or let impossible odds stop us before." Elena looked around the chamber one more time, seeing fear and hope and desperate determination in every alien face. Then, she made the decision that would either save the galaxy or transform it beyond recognition. "Do it. Make contact." Elena's heart raced. "What are they, Marcus?" Marcus turned to look at the assembled alien scientists and delegates, and when he spoke, his words changed everything they thought they knew about the galaxy's greatest threat. "They're not invaders," he said softly. "They're gardeners." As the station shook with another wave of emergency alerts, Elena Vasquez realized that her 3 years of rejected theories and dismissed research had been leading to this moment. The galaxy was about to discover what humanity was truly capable of, and she prayed it would be enough.